But I can remember starting to school in McMahan, Texas, I guess about 1936. The first grade there, I had a teacher, and her name was Maxine Watts. Anyway, the second grade teacher, I believe I had the same woman there. The third grade teacher, her name was Ola McMahan. And a couple of other teachers there. One of them was Lonnie Bright, and Lonnie Bright is still alive and living in Lockhart. She's about 94 years old now. And there was a few other teachers down there. But I walked to school, and we had two schoolhouses down there. One of them was just a plain wooden building with, I believe, 2 rooms in it. And that was the schoolhouse on the east side, and on the just west side of there was a stucco building. It was for higher learning, I guess you call it, maybe junior high and high school. And so back in those days, I guess they still went all the way through high school at McMahan. But anyway, I did walk to school, but it was only just a little over a mile. I didn't, I guess, the first year or so. Maybe I had help getting down there in a wagon or something like that, or somebody had helped me out somewhere along the line. I don't remember. But we had a boys' outhouses on this side of the school buildings, and we had a girls' outhouses on the other side. And in these little schoolhouses down there, 2 of them, as I just mentioned. See, first of all, I'm going to talk about the school at McMahan, and later I'll talk about the farm life over here where I live today. So in these 2 little buildings down there, we had those big old round wood heaters that we had for the winter, and we had those old-timey desks that had an ink well, place to put your bottle of ink. That was before days of ballpoint pens. Oh yes. And there was a little slot there that was carved out for a pencil, and you could shove your right underneath that desk that you wrote and deciphered on and so forth. Well, you could put books and so forth right in there along with your brown bag. Your brown bag is a sack that you took to school from the farm home over here. And we had maybe sausage and biscuits, and maybe sometime cookies. We had what we call tea cakes or something like that, and maybe some kind of peanut butter sandwich. Didn't have too much stuff. And that was long before the years of backpacks. The first grade of school, I believe there was 7 little boys and little girls. The girls were Earlene Adams, Linnell Holliston, Lou Ella Voigt, Margie Mae Morris, and the boys were Jimmy McGee. And we had Vance Kirksey. And we had yours truly, Hemmy. I believe there was about 7 of us, as well as I can remember. Anyway, all 7 of us, I do believe, that we went from the first grade through high school. The school had a superintendent and a principal. Both were men, I do believe, and I believe most of the rest of them might have been women folk. Something like that. But we had a big place there to play softball, and naturally all this is on the ground. We had a right by that we had a basketball place. We had a go ever so often, so many feet apart, whatever regulation is, just dirt floor naturally. We'd have the gymnasium. Oh no. We played basketball. Then we had a little tennis court. And then we played dare base. And a lot of folks don't know what dare base is. And we played marbles. And we played mumbly peg. I mean, we played games that it didn't cost any money is what I'm getting at. And we did not need any batteries. I believe school back then, I guess it still does, started somewhere in September and got out sometime in May. So anyway, down there in this school, after a few years there, I got a little bit bigger, maybe in maybe the 7th grade. Wasn't too many folks went to school in McMahan, low school, middle school, or high school. So I got to play left field on the softball team. Oh yes, I could catch the ball and I could run, but I couldn't hit worth a darn. Every time I'd hit the ball, knock it straight back to the pitcher and make a out 9 times out of 10. And I've been down and out a lot of times in my life, but that was just one of them. But I wasn't a very good hitter. Anyway, we had a basketball team, and I believe they called me a forward. Yeah, that's what it was. I was a pretty good shooter. I could shoot that ball pretty good. A little slim fella, I could run pretty fast. But anyway, so I got to play on the basketball team, and sometimes down there at McMahan on the weekends, well, we would go to Maxwell, we'd go to Mendoza, we may go to Staples, we go to Dale, we may go to Lytton. It's according to what season it might have been. We might have been, sometime we'd play softball. Sometime we'd go play basketball. They did have a gymnasium in Dale. And that's the first time I ever saw an indoor toilet thing that had a what they called a latrine. I thought it was some kind of drinking fountain. Didn't know no difference. Oh, I'm telling you, pretty dumb. But anyway, that was the days in McMahan there. And I guess I passed every year. I didn't flunk out nowhere along the road. No. Well, in the early 40s there at McMahan, come April Fools there, and another 4 fellows and myself, or 3 fellows and myself, we decided we going to play April Fool and we not going to go to school. And Hammy was the biggest fool of the gang, as it turned out, for the following reasons. We went down to Tinney Creek, which is just a few hundred feet away from the schoolhouse. And so we played around there that day, and I was a damn fool for going. But anyway, I got this poison oak and poison ivy. And I'd already gotten it before when I was smaller, when I was 5 or 6 years old. And when I had that stuff earlier, they throw me in a wash tub over here, a number 3 wash tub, I think, when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And Mother tell me to wash off with cold water and Lifebuoy soap. And all that did was make it spread. And then we used this pink calamine lotion to put on this poison oak and poison ivy. And it didn't help a cotton picking bit. But I got the poison oak and poison ivy down there at this April Fool's Day in the early 40s, like I just said. And I didn't go back to school for 2 weeks. It was so bad, it turned into eczema. And my whole body was maybe a quarter of an inch deep in scabs and scales. I mean, it was a pitiful, awful mess. I laid in bed for a week or so with nothing on but a sheet or sometimes nothing. Itching, hurting, misery. Felt too bad to die. Didn't know what that meant anyway. But anyway, it was a pretty itchy business. And I had one gal to come over here to see me, and her name was Lorraine DeVinny. She was a slim, tall gal. When she got grown, she was 5'10". Anyway, she was a good old gal. But she did come to see me when I had that poison oak and poison ivy there in the early 40s. Never went off from school no more. Not on April Fool's Day, and don't go to the creeks and rivers or ponds anywhere like that anymore. I don't even drive down the road close to a creek or river or anything like that with my windows rolled down. Great, I'll get it from the wind, and I can get it by the wind blowing my way. So I went to McMahan School through my freshman year, which was a 42 and 43. The last of May of May of 43 was the last year I went to school at McMahan. Didn't have any more high school after that. Had to start going to Lockhart High. Now to the farm life here, from when I was a little bitty kid, well as I can remember, until going to Lockhart High School. I'm going to tell about this farm life here and this farmhouse and farm living. This house here was built in 1885. It is now 119 years old, I do believe. And I think the first people that lived here, whether they built it or not, I don't know. I believe their name was Rice. And the second the family that lived here, their name was Hanley. So I've been told. I don't know for a fact. And anyway, in 1901, my grandpappy, James Edward Kelly, Bud Kelly, bought this place in 1901. But this house here has a living room, 2 bedrooms, a dining room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. And that's it, except for the upstairs, which upstairs is not used anymore. But when I was a little feller, well, my brother and I, we slept upstairs there in the summer and winter, and it was colder than a well digger's butt in Alaska in the winter, and it was hotter than a pepper patch in the summer. Anyway, that was the days. But we had a fireplace over here, and I had lots of good chores when I was a young'un. I don't know exactly what age I was, but I wasn't too old when I started to having all these good chores of this good farm living. We had a cow so to milk, and I milked the cow. Milked the cows. 3 days later, I churned the butter. My mother told me you can get more milk from the cows, and when the time come for to make the butter, says you can get more butter than we can. She had me fooled pretty swift like. That was okay. So I had the good chore of slopping the hogs, cleaning out the roost from the chicken house, gathering the eggs, feeding the chickens, and all that good stuff out there. And sometimes, even when I was real small, we had to hook up the mules to the wagon and go down here in the pasture and cut wood and bring it to the house for this fireplace. And it got pretty cotton picking cold in here in the winter, because this fireplace was the main heat we had. I don't remember exactly what kind of stove we had, whether it was a wood stove or what it was for kitchen. I don't remember that part. But it showed it'd get cold in here. Lots of cracks in this house, windy, high hill. And we didn't have any electricity back in those days. We never got electricity here until around 1945, I do believe. And so our outhouse was outside on the south side of the house there about 100 feet. And we had no indoor bath or nothing like that. We took a bath in a number 3 wash tub. In the summertime, we'd take a bath in this tub on the north side of the house. In the wintertime, we'd take a bath on the south side of the house when the wind wasn't blowing. The good old days of a farm boy, Kelly. Hambone Kelly, that is. Back up a few feet here to the McMahan school. Down there, some people lived further away from the school than I did, so they rode horses and mules down there and left them tied up and in a stall down there with a sheet iron roof and so forth, so it'd be out of the weather. So they rode them back and forth each day. But I never had to ride a horse, don't believe. And when I was a little kid, I did have, talking about horses, I had a Shetland pony when I was about, I guess, 2 or 3 years old, and her name was Nancy. She was black and white, she wasn't very big. And old Bud Kelly, my grandpappy, he so-called gave me this Shetland pony. But he turned out to be an Indian giver. He let me keep her for a few years, and then he just took her away, and he gave her to one of my first cousins in Lockhart, Texas. So after that, I didn't like Bud Kelly too much. Anyway, but this little Shetland pony I had out here for those few years, I'd ride her down to the mailbox and come back, and every day she would go to the barn, and Hammy would come towards the house, so I fell off every cotton picking day. I never get smart enough to figure out she's going to go to the barn when I didn't have very far to fall anyway. So instead on the story of horses, when I was about 15, 16 years old, well, I had old Tony, this cow horse, and I was chasing Bart McGee's cow one day up here, side the hill here, right down there, and I think it was paved by then in the 40s. And this one I just started going to school in high school, and I just made the basketball team. And I'll be a son of a gun, this horse fell down when I was chasing this cow across the road. It had been raining. Road was slick, just been paved, I guess. My foot didn't get, my right foot didn't get out of stirrup in time, broke that foot, smashed it all to smithereens. Went to some damn quack doctor, my folks did. Never did heal back right, wasn't never right. Still got a knot on my right foot. And so that was the end of my athletic career of playing any kind of ball, basketball, or anything else. Anyway, down there at McMahan, they had trustees down there, just like they do everywhere, I guess. And my dad was one of those 7 trustees that hired and fired the teachers and so forth. And my dad went all the way to the 3rd grade, but so did the other farmers around here. Some didn't have much schooling at all. And talking about schools again now, well, just across the road here we had a black school. They called them niggers in those days. And we used to go play them basketball sometime. That little wooden building up there is not there. It's been gone for many, many years, naturally. And up by the Jeffrey Cemetery, just east there, where the hog man is, Maurice Reed, there was a Mexican school there. And that's just another little story there. And the buildings here around the house was the house itself. The smokehouse is still standing. I've still got one chicken house, it's still standing. And it's just got tools and not much of nothing in it out there. And I've got a little tractor shed that's still standing. And I've got one red shed down west of the house, right close where one of the Mexican houses used to be. And that little red shed was one time used for hogs. Got hog feeders down and everything. We had, lots of hogs out there, all kinds of hogs. And speaking of hogs now, well, getting into another story here. I guess about the time I went to Lockhart High School somewhere now, I belonged to this 4-H club. Future Farmers America and all that good stuff. But I wrote myself an essay, whatever that means, and I wrote a good enough story there to tell about farm living that I won myself a pig. And this little pig didn't go to market. This little pig come to McMahan to the farm. And this little pig that I won in this essay, she was the runt of the litter and the only sow in the bunch, so that was my luck again to get in the worst mess you could get into as far as getting me a pig. So I kept this Duroc Jersey out here for the whole year. And the next year, we went back to the fair in Lockhart, Texas. And I guess from that litter, from that Duroc Jersey sow, I took another pig up there to show in this show when they had in the spring or summer. This fairground is what it was. And I come up and I got myself second place again, and I won myself 100 duties. Chickens, that is. Yes, what a life. But anyway, yeah, when I was a little kid, we didn't have toys. We didn't have stuff like that. I never had a tricycle. I never had a bicycle. I might have had a balloon or something like that. But my transportation was that little Shetland pony and that quarter horse later on. And I could ride pretty good. But anyway, with dirt and gravel roads, well, we couldn't have used bicycles and tricycles out here if we'd had the money, I don't guess. But I never had toys or nothing like that. No. We played marbles like I mentioned before. Didn't cost much. And we didn't have soda water around this place here. I don't ever remember having soda water here any time from when I was a young'un until up through high school, I don't guess. We never had Coca-Colas, no. We had milk, water, tea, coffee, maybe some lemonade once in a while. Maybe once or twice a year, might get on the front porch with an old turn thing that you made ice cream with by hand. No electric, no. Up until 1945, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't have any electricity out here. Not one cotton picking bit. Anyway, we had one little old radio, and maybe we'd listen to Amos and Andy on a weekend or something like that. Not too much, and so there was no circulation, no good heat or nothing like that, no good lighting. We didn't take newspapers, and that was way years before television. So we had lots of good chores to do out here. But these other outhouses, outbuildings we had outside, had this big barn down there, was built in 1934, I believe. And it's a two-story job. We kept hay in the top and grain in the bottom, and there was a big lot out there for the horses and the cows and all that stuff. We did have a few cows around here and a few head of cattle and calves and so forth. But like I mentioned earlier, we had lots of times we had hundreds and hundreds of turkeys and maybe 100 hogs. I don't know how many we had. We had lots of hogs and so forth. Because he knew who was doing that good stuff by throwing that gravel up on his roof. But we'd also, when he wasn't looking, we'd go to his barbershop. We'd put gravel in his suit pocket. Oh yeah, coat pocket. He hung it right by the wall, over there on the wall. This is where you sit down and wait to get a haircut. We used to do all those stunts, but we didn't do that too many times. We figured he might get a better aim and just blow the hell out of us. So anyway, that was some days of living out here at McMahan. Just east of McMahan out there, it's what they call the Sand Hills. And my cousin and I, CB, Carlos Baker, we were about 15, 16 years old. We had heard something about a bit of silver mine down there by Tillman. So we got horseback one day. We liked to ride horses, I did. And so we rode out in them hills. We were going to find this silver mine. all we found was we found ourselves getting lost out there. Back in those days, there wasn't too many fences. There was no signs of posted keep out and all that good stuff. It was just a bunch. It was just pines and cedars and sand rock and all that good stuff. Anyway, we got lost. We let these horses. We let them come loose after dark when we was lost in those hills. We let them just figure their way back home, so that worked out all right. But anyway, there was a silver mine down by Tillman, they tell me, at one time or another. But down in McMahan, they also had a clubhouse down there, a community center, they still call it. And women would meet there and, have a get-together, I think, once a week or once every 2 weeks, which they still do. And back in that time, there wasn't over about 100 or so people lived here. And back in the dirty 30s, the poor 30s, the Depression years, it was something else out here. And so was it all over the country and a lot of other places, I guess. But I didn't know nothing about any place except McMahan, Texas. In the 30s, my dad had these Mexican places over here with these Mexican folks. And so we built terraces. I didn't. I watched them do it. I was too little. I was so glad I was too little. I wasn't about 6, 7 years old. But they built terraces with 2 mules and a double shovel. And it took them, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess, to build all these terraces. And that terrace is to keep your dirt, your land from washing down the hillside. We got lots of hillsides out here. But it took, I know, a long, long time to build those terraces. And the main 2 mules we had back in the 30s, I remember it like it was yesterday, they was named Tom and Joe. Yes, that's right.